Hi guys, I'm PUTSY, welcome back to my channel, and as you can see by the title, it's time for a mid-year book freakout tag. So, mid-year book freakout tag. I think this is probably my second book freakout tag, which is kind of crazy to think about because before 2020, I only probably read like one book a year. I always been in love with reading, but there are a lot of years in my early 20s that I just don't read at all. So to think that now I make a tag video about books is just kind of crazy, and now it's my second time doing this. But honestly, falling in love with reading all over again has been one of the best things to happen to me this past couple of years because it's helping me a lot with my mental state, with my happiness. I'm obsessed with it. I love watching book videos, and I also love talking about books, which is why I make this video. And this year has been incredible for me in terms of reading. From January to June, I have read 53 books, which is insane. Last year in 2021, my goal was to read 50 books a year, and I didn't even manage to hit my goal. I only read like 48 books or something, and now it's only 6 months. I already way past my goal from last year. It's insane. But since I already hit that goal, I'm going to upgrade it a little bit, maybe to 75 or 100 books, who knows. But I'm not going to force myself to reach that goal because I already hit my original one. So yeah, I'm just going to focus myself on finding a good book and just enjoy my time reading even more. So yeah, 53 books in 6 months. If you want to know every single book I've read, I'm going to link my Goodreads page down below, and I have these stats right here from Storygraph. 53 books, 18,335 pages. To be specific, in total I read 14,854 pages of physical and ebook and 90.27 hours of audiobook, which is insane. The moods of the books I've read. So as you can see, most of the books I read tend to be emotional, sad, dark. Hopeful comes last. I wonder why. I mean, I do love my emotional books. This is the detail for the pace and page number. And all the books I've read so far in 2022 are all fiction books. And in terms of genre, 45 of them are romance, 25 are contemporary, and then thriller and mystery tied in third place. In terms of authors, this is the stat. Most of the book I've read are from L. Kennedy because I read the entirety of the Off-Campus and Briar U series, and there is 9 books in total. My most successful reading month so far was in February. I think I've read like 14 books or something like that. And my worst reading month so far was last month in May. I was in a huge reading slump. I only read 4 books, but it's still amazing. Like 4 books. I only dream about reading 4 books in a month in 2020. And so yeah, that's the stat. And let's get into the first question. Best book you've read so far in 2022? I know exactly which book is my top favorite so far from 2022, but it's a series, so I think I'm just going to include this for my next question. But come close to that series is a book that I just finished yesterday, so it's still really fresh in my mind. I'm still blown away by this book, and it's Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is the book that I've been wanting to read for such a long time. I wanted to read this because of so many different reasons. 1, I've heard a lot of incredible things about this. 2, I love Taylor Jenkins Reid writing. I read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo in 2021, and it was one of my favorite books of all time. So I really want to read every single book she's ever written. 3rd is because it's about a rock and roll band in the 70s, and rock is one of my favorite genre. 70s is one of my favorite decade. I always found it really fascinating and crazy, wild, but also fun. But this book is honestly phenomenal. The writing in this is very, very unique. This book is written in like interview format from almost every single person involved, and reading this truly feels like you're watching a real life autobiography from a real band from the 70s, talking about their experience, their journey to fame, their most pivotal moment in their career, and then what happened afterwards, where they are now, not only from the band member, the musician, but also from people around them, like the producer, their family member, from key people, talking about key moments in their career. Obviously, this is about the journey of Daisy Jones and Six. They are very, very successful during the 70s, but then one day at the peak of their career, they just vanish, disappear, they stop touring, they stop making music. Nobody really know what happened, like what caused them to break up. So in this book, we explore that. I personally think one of Taylor Jenkins Reid's strength is in her characters. Every single one of them are uniquely complex, very much layered. No one is just one thing or the other. It's never black or white. It's never like you're the good guy, you're the bad guy. Especially with the main character, they always have some major flaws, something that they did that you just cannot get on board with, but then you can see where they come from, why they are the way they are. You can still see them as good people despite all of the faults that they've made, all of their past mistakes, and I truly love that. Very real and raw. And not only the main character, every single side characters, even the one that only appear like 1 or 2 lines, still get a really good treatment. And I also cried a couple of times during this book, which is kind of surprising. I did not expect that at all from this book. I felt so many different emotions reading this book, and not even halfway through, I already think of all of these characters as real people, a real band that I've been following for so many years. Best sequel you've read so far in 2022. This is the easiest question in this whole tag video because I know exactly the answer before I even finish reading the question. It's the Ravenhood series by Kate Stewart. I binged this whole entire series in February and I already reread this or like listen to the audiobook the next month. That's how much I love this series. There are Flock, Exodus, and The Finish Line. If I have to pick one, like my favorite out of them all, I think I have to choose Exodus. That book just destroyed me so many ways, but I love being destroyed by that book. I cried, I was angry. The way this book plays with my emotion is like nothing I've ever experienced from a book. And I cannot really say what this series is about. That's the thing about this series. You better get into it very blindly. It's a bit confusing at first to get into it, but the more you read the book, the more you'll get it. And then the last book is pretty much explain the whole entire thing. Everything just makes so much sense and you'll get closer afterwards. It's probably one of the best conclusion in a series I've ever read as well. The romance in it is incredible. I'm obsessed with this series so much. Listening to it again, I love it even more. But yeah, I talk about this book so many times already in a couple of my past wrap-up videos, so I won't really get into it again, even though I just did. But yeah, for sure one of my favorite series of all time. New release you haven't read but want to. A lot of books comes to my mind, but I really want to narrow it down to just 2. So the first one is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. She's the writer of Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation. Those 2 books are probably one of my favorite book I've read in 2021, especially Beach Read. I adore that book so much. So of course, I was very excited to read this one. I was planning on reading this as soon as it came out, but it arrived a bit late. I just received this in my mail like a couple of days ago. This is like pretty much a great summer book, just like Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation, and all 3 books have something to do with books, journalism, writing, or something like that. I don't even know what this book is about. Honestly, I just noticed Emily Henry write another romance book, have the similar vibe in the cover, so sign me in. I've heard incredible things so far from people. Some of them even say this is their favorite books from Emily Henry. Some of them say this is their second favorite after Beach Read, so I cannot wait to find out where I'm going to put this in my Emily Henry's ranking. And the second one is this brick right here, House of Sky and Breath from Sarah J. Maas, the second book from the Crescent City series. I cannot believe that this book is a brand new book that just released this past 6 months, because I feel like this has been out forever. It's on top of my TBR, but when this released, I was in my Kindle obsession period. I had a really hard time getting into my physical TBR, so this got pushed, and now I haven't even touched this book, especially because this is like a brick. It has like 800 something pages. It's very heavy, but I cannot wait to get into this one, because the first book in this series, House of Earth and Blood, was one of my favorite book from 2021, one of my favorite fantasy book ever, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Well, for this question, I really have a hard time narrow it down to just one, even three, so I have a lot, but the first one is The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. It's the third and I think probably the last installment for this series, The Inheritance Games. Have I read The Inheritance Games? No. But am I excited for the next book? Absolutely yes. That series is also on top of my TBR. I wanted to read the first one last year, but I wasn't able to, but since the last book is going to come out really soon, I figured why not just wait so I can binge the whole thing, because I think each book ends with a big cliffhanger, so I don't want that. The next one is It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. Also haven't read It Ends With Us. I'm still in the middle of the book. Hopefully I can finish that book really soon. So far I really like the book, and I know the main character in It Starts With Us is this side character who appear in It Ends With Us that really intrigued me, so I cannot wait to get into his story. I think his name is Atlas or something like that. And the next one is Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Of course, I'm excited for this one. Carrie Soto is a tennis player who everyone thought already passed her prime, but she's going to make a comeback. I think Carrie Soto already appeared in Malibu Rising. From what I've heard, I haven't read Malibu Rising. Hopefully I can get into Malibu Rising before this book comes out. But yeah, I really love this whole entire old Hollywood universe TGRs have going on here. Every single book is about different people, but somehow there's always one or two character from previous one who appear in the next one, or you have to pay attention with any character who appear in her books. They might be the main character for her next one. Next is Babel from R.F. Kuang, the writer of the Poppy War trilogy. I haven't read that trilogy, but I've heard incredible things about that series. I've heard R.F. Kuang is an amazing writer, so I cannot wait to read this book, but mainly because of the cover. Me and great book covers have a thing going on. If a book has really great cover that I like, no matter what people think about it, even if I know nothing about the book, I don't even need to read the synopsis or anything. I just buy the book because I'm intrigued. I love great book covers, and from what I've heard, I think it has some sort of dark academia vibe going on, which is really exciting. It will tackle on some really interesting and important topic in the academia world, so yeah, I'm really intrigued. The last book for this question is The Atlas Paradox by Olivie Blake. This is the second book in the Atlas series. The Atlas 6 is the first one. Also haven't read that book, yet I'm still really excited for the second one. I really want to read the Atlas 6 maybe in 1 or 2 months. It's dark academia, a lot of people love this book, and I also really like the cover. The vibe they have going on here for this series is really cool in my opinion. Biggest disappointment. I really like almost every single book I've read so far in 2022, so this question is a little bit difficult for me to answer. There are a couple of books that I know for sure is the worst one, but they are not really my biggest disappointment, because I know going in that I probably will hate that book, but I still try and then I hate it. So I was like, yeah, I saw that one coming. So I think for this specific question, it's not necessarily a book that I dislike, because I truly like this book, but I just had such high expectation for this. So when it didn't really reach that expectation, I was disappointed, which is Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. Overall, I still give this book, I think, around 4.2 25 stars or something like that, which is still a really good score. I know it's a bit of a darker romance, from love to hate to love kind of a thing. The storyline itself is quite exciting, like there's a lot of going on at the same time, which I like, but also maybe that's the reason why I didn't love this book. In the end, makes this book feels a little bit messy. It's set in high school about a guy who's been a pen pal of this girl. They don't know each other in real life, and then he found out who she really is. He didn't like the real her because she's trying to be someone she's not, and then he moves into her school pretending to be someone else, and then he bullies her. It gets a little bit messy. There's also a mystery of why this guy pretend to be someone else, move to this school. Like there's a lot going on. I think it's also probably my fault because the book I've read before this have been 5 star, 5 star, 5 star. So when I get into this one, I compare this book to Penelope Douglas's other book that I really love, to the Ravenhood series, which is A Big Mistake. Biggest Surprise. Also a book by Penelope Douglas, which is Birthday Girl. So we have a flip one here. I expected myself to love Punk 57, and I didn't really care much about Birthday Girl because it has a trope that I was kind of iffy about, which is why it was a big surprise. This book is a little bit of a taboo romance about a 19-year-old girl and a 38-year-old man who is also the father of her boyfriend. I expected myself to loathe this book, but Steph Bower mentioned this book before. She really liked this. I think it was probably 5 stars. So I was like, if she loved this, I probably will as well. So I tried to have an open mind going into this book, and I'm glad I did because I ended up really loving this book. I give this book 5 stars, and because of this book, I'm now open to any kind of trope in romance. It opened so many doors for me, and I found some really great dark or taboo romances because I tried to keep an open mind after reading this one. Like, I just really like this. The relationship is really beautiful. It's kind of angsty. There are some really sad moments, some really wholesome, great moments in it as well. They never really tried to romanticize their age gap. In fact, their age gap is the one thing that kept them from each other for a long time before they finally try to pursue this romantic relationship. So yeah, overall, biggest surprise, 5 stars. One of my favorite books that I've read so far. Favorite new author, debut or new to you? I have a couple of authors that comes to mind, but I think the main author is Mariana Zapata. I've been hearing a lot of incredible things about Mariana Zapata and her books, like she's the queen of slow burn. I was excited but also really scared because I tend to dislike slow burn, but I tried to read one of her books. The first one was All Roads Lead Here. At first it was really intimidating because not only her books are slow burn, it's also really thick. I think it was like 500-600 pages or something like that. In her books, you have to expect nothing really going on romantically until the very last 10% of the book, but that book was really good. One of my favorite. I gave it 4.75 or maybe even 5 stars. I don't remember. Like, this is the kind of slow burn that I can really get behind. The tension building was really nice. The interaction between the character, the banter and everything are always really good. I really want to read every single book Mariana Zapata ever written. Hopefully I can do that. I was planning on reading at least one book from her each month, but so far hasn't been really successful. But I know for sure there will be a couple other Mariana Zapata books that I've read comes the end of 2022. Newest fictional crush. For this question, I honestly have a hard time. I don't know if it's because there are no one that I really like or because there's just too many people that I really like that I have a hard time choosing one. But I think Sean from the Ravenhood series, I really like him. Probably even more than the other two guys. He's not really like my absolute type, but I have a special attachment to him, and I don't like what happened to him in that book. But I don't know exactly if he is my fictional crush. Like, I really love him, but I don't want him for me. I want him for the character in that book. But honestly, every single guy within the Ravenhood series are all top tier men. Like, they're not always good, but they're all superior and very, very attractive. I don't know how that's possible. And the next one I think is Alex Volkov from Twisted Love, which is, he's not a good guy. I mean, he's a good guy to his girlfriend. I think her name is Ava. He's a very morally great character, very, very cold, and he's done some really, really bad things, questionable ones, but every time he appeared, I always felt some type of way. Like, I always really excited whenever he appears. Like, I don't want to be with a guy like that, but you know, just a stupid crush. Newest favorite character. I also don't know who I should choose for this question, but I really like Tobias King, also from the Ravenhood series. I think because he's such a complex character and I really like his character arc. He started off as this really cold, a bit toxic, but he really redeemed himself in the third book, and even when he did some bad stuff, he's still in his core a really good guy. And I also really like Daisy Jones from Daisy Jones and the Six. She's not always a good character, but she really fascinates me. Like, she did some really, really messed up thing to herself, but I understand where she comes from, why she did all the things she did. If she is a real person, I think I will be a huge fan of her. Like, I think she is a really great musician, songwriter, singer, and overall, she's really interesting, intriguing, and captivating. And her best friend in that book, I think her name is Simone, is also a superior human being, the best friend Daisy Jones could ever ask for. I think she needs an appreciation. So yeah, let's just say the two of them. Book that made you cry. You've seen the stats. I've read a lot of emotional books, and there are a couple of books comes to my mind that caused me so much pain. I've cried a lot reading those, which is really surprising because I usually am not a crier while reading. I am kind of an emotional person, but I cry really easily, mostly because of movies and music. But with books, it's usually very hard for me. But I have one clear winner. The number one book that made me weep, bawl my eyes, cry really ugly, almost the whole entire read is 1,000 Boy Kisses. Every single chapter, there are things that made me cry. And it's like a proper ugly cry that makes you almost choked. It's a young adult romance. I usually not a fan of young adult romance. I'm fine with young adult murder mystery, thriller, or fantasy, but usually romance book I prefer new adult or adult because most of young adult romance feels way too young for me. But this book, even though there are a lot of cheesy lines and moments, a bit cringy sometimes, but I still really adore this book. It's really, really sad, it's emotional, but also kind of heartwarming at the same time because the love story within this book is so beautiful. It's about our two main characters, childhood best friends. One day they got separated, I think when they are 17 or something like that, but they promise each other to still be together. Then one day Poppy kind of disappeared, and a couple of years later Alex moved back into his old house, and then we finally figured out why she disappeared. And it was really sad even before then, but it got really, really sad after that. But I truly feel their connection. They are literally soulmates. The love story is so sweet, and all the moments that they did together are so lovely, and that made this story even more heartbreaking. Book that made you happy. I think for this one, I have to say All Roads Lead Here by Mariana Zapata. It happened in a small town. It's about our main heroine who just got into a very nasty divorce. She moves back to her old hometown. She rents an Airbnb from this guy who turns out knows nothing about it. His son actually ran that place without his knowing. So they started out on a wrong foot. Rhodes instantly kind of dislike her, but slowly she proved him wrong, and they obviously end up being together. But what made me happy isn't really the relationship in it, but mostly the setting. This book is very, very atmospheric. It's super cozy, heartwarming. The scenery in this book is very exquisite in my opinion. Our main character, I think her name is Aurora, she did a lot of hiking during this book. It's like one of the major plot. So there's a lot of nature going on, and mix that with the found family aspect in this book. Her relationship with everyone in town is amazing. So you get a slow burn, found family, a beautiful relationship within Aurora and Rhodes' son. They became really good friends. They play music together, and we also have a very beautiful cozy setting. Everything just mixed together makes me happy. Like, I felt such joy and peacefulness reading this book for some reason. So yeah, it's one of the coziest book I've ever read. What's the most beautiful book you've bought so far? I have a lot of books with great covers that I really love, but I think the main one is this book right here. I bought this last year actually. I pre-ordered this, but this arrived a couple months ago. This is The Invisible Life of Addie by Schwab, but this is the illustrated anniversary edition. First of all, it has a special edition cover. I think the regular one is blue, but this is obviously white with a beautiful gold foiling with all these flowers. I think it's really gorgeous, but then you flip it and it has a stencil and sprayed edges, flowers, and this beautiful gray really matches the whole vibe. Not only that, when you open it, the inside is also beautiful. We have this really beautiful gray with silver foiling. Not only that, we still have some more. We have a gorgeous illustration also in the back. And we still have some more. Right in the middle of the book, we have a couple more illustrations. Like, I think from a couple different artists. Like, there are characters. It's just, honestly, really beautiful illustration. I really like it. And we also have this gold book ribbon thing. Still don't know what that's called, but yeah. This is probably one of the most beautiful book I've owned, like, ever. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Early on the year, I made a video. I think it's called 22 books I want to read in 2022. So for this question, I could just answer all the books that I haven't read from that video. But the problem is, I haven't read most of them. Like, there are only 1 or 2 books in that video that I have read, mainly because I was obsessed with my Kindle. I don't really touch my physical TBR. But if I have to choose just one, I think on top of that list is The Song of Achilles by Madeline. By the way, this is a special edition. It's a beautiful copy. It's hardcover. The paper in it are really thick, good quality paper. But yeah, this book has been on my TBR for so many years since I know it existed. Basically, this is a retelling of Patroclus and Achilles' love story through Patroclus' perspective. A lot of people said amazing thing about this, that they cried, especially during the ending of the book, which makes me really excited because I obviously like sad books, and in my mind, I have to be in the right mood to get into this one. For me to be able to appreciate it fully, like, I have to find the perfect time and perfect mood for it so I can do it justice or something like that. Honestly, I don't really know why, but yeah, I really need to get into this. I think I'm going to love this. Like, I don't have to be worried about that because it has so many great things that I love from a book. It's Greek mythology. It's also a love story that is going to be sad, but yeah, I really need to kind of force myself, like push myself to finally read this because I think it's time. So that's it. I don't know if it's an interesting video, but I just want to participate. I made this video last year, so I want to do it again. I hope you like it, and let me know in the comment section down below. Just answer all the questions if you want to, but I want to know specifically the very last question. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? I really want to know. Maybe I will get some sort of inspiration from your answers. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. Maybe you can subscribe to my channel, hit the subscribe button down below. Check out my Goodreads page if you want to know every single book I've read and every single books I'm going to read in the future. And give this video a thumbs up if you like, and you don't have to, but I will truly appreciate it if you do. And that's it. See you in another video. Bye guys.